Let's get after it. Deep inside Russia, the heart of its war machine is beating, a rhythm of oil, money and power. Now, imagine that heart getting hit. Not once, but 4 times in 10 days. This was no accident. It was a calculated campaign to cripple the Russian economy and starve its military. 4 major oil refineries, the lifeblood of Putin's regime, went up in flames. The explosion sent shockwaves straight to the Kremlin. This is a new phase of the war, brutally effective and deeply destabilizing. Russia, an energy superpower, suddenly finds its foundation cracking. Ukrainian drones flying hundreds of miles bypassed air defenses to deliver devastating payloads. The message, no part of Russia is safe. These strikes weren't just symbolic, they directly targeted Russia's operational capacity. The fires were more than burning oil. They were Putin's war budget going up in smoke. Ukraine has opened a new front, an economic war, targeting the engine of Russia's military. By hitting these refineries, Ukraine is creating a crisis inside Russia, forcing Putin to choose between fueling his army and his people. The psychological impact is massive. The sense of vulnerability is spreading across Russia. Ukraine, with fewer resources, has found Russia's Achilles heel. They've turned Russia's vast geography and energy wealth into a critical vulnerability. The audacity of these attacks is breathtaking, catching the Kremlin off guard. This isn't just about explosions, it's a strategic takedown of an entire system. As the smoke clears, one thing is certain: the game has changed. Putin is furious, and for the first time he's on the defensive. The war's front lines have moved deep into Russia itself. Let's break down the attacks. The first blow landed on the Novospik refinery, a critical hub for gasoline, diesel and jet fuel. The strike was precise, targeting key units for maximum disruption. Fires burned for days, a symbol of Ukraine's new reach. As Russians scrambled, another strike hit the Ryazan refinery, southeast of Moscow, one of the country's largest. Ukrainian drones forced a complete shutdown, sparking panic near the capital. Russia's air defenses built for NATO missiles proved useless against these agile threats. The onslaught continued. A third refinery in a sprawling industrial complex was hit. Each attack compounded the last, creating a cascade of failures across Russia's energy sector. In less than 2 weeks, Ukraine took an estimated 14% of Russia's oil refining capacity offline. For an economy dependent on oil and gas, this is catastrophic. The final strike, Saratov refinery, deep inside Russian territory near a strategic bomber base. Hitting a target in Russia's backyard was a direct challenge to Putin's authority. Ukraine's hit list reads like a who's who of Russian energy infrastructure, and they're checking off names with alarming speed. The message, nowhere is safe. The fallout inside Russia was immediate. 14% of fuel production offline meant instant shortages. Long lines at gas stations, spiking prices, and panic spread across regions. Putin's response? A sudden ban on all gasoline exports, a desperate move. Russia, once an energy superpower, was forced to cut off a major source of foreign currency just to keep its own country running. The export ban was a public admission. The strikes were devastating. The military faces a logistical nightmare. How do you sustain a war when your fuel is running out? Tanks, jets, and trucks are useless without diesel and jet fuel. Russian units on the front lines could soon face critical shortages, limiting their ability to fight. The war is now consuming the very resources needed to sustain it. Putin is trapped. The more he fights, the more his own economy bleeds. Ukraine's ingenuity has turned Russia's strength into its greatest weakness. The geography of these strikes tells the real story. The Saratov refinery is over 500 miles inside Russia, far from the border. For a drone to travel that distance, evade detection, and strike precisely is a feat of engineering and intelligence. The message: your strategic depth is no longer a shield. Then came the Ukta refinery strike, nearly 1,700 miles from Ukraine, deep in the Russian north. This shattered every assumption about the conflict's scope. Ukraine can now hit the heart of Russia's energy infrastructure, no matter how remote. These are not just military strikes, they're psychological warfare. The war is no longer distant, it's at Russia's doorstep. Trust in the Kremlin's ability to protect its people is eroding. By forcing Russia to pull air defenses away from the front, Ukraine creates new vulnerabilities. It's a brilliant move, stretching Russian resources thin, putting them on the defensive everywhere. The concept of a safe Russian rear area is gone. The war is now everywhere. Let's follow the money. Every barrel of oil not refined and sold is a direct hit to Putin's war chest. Sanctions already strained Russia's economy. Now it's a full-blown crisis. The budget deficit is exploding. The national wealth fund is being drained. With refineries offline and exports banned, revenue projections are fantasy. Russia is left with a glut of crude oil, forced to sell at deep discounts to China and India. Less refined product, less profit. Putin's nightmare scenario. The goal: make the cost of war unbearable. Less money for soldiers, tanks, and repairs. Military failures compound economic ones. Repairing these refineries will take months, maybe years, and Russia can't access Western tech. Even if the attack stopped today, the damage would last. Putin has mortgaged Russia's future for war, and Ukraine is calling in the debt. The economic chokehold is real, and it's tightening. It's not just oil. Ukraine is targeting Russia's logistical arteries. Railways, bridges, and command posts behind enemy lines are under attack. Now, Ukraine is hitting the international supply chain, especially support from China. A recent fire at a logistics terminal on the Russia-China border, widely attributed to Ukraine, caused massive disruption. The message, Ukraine can interfere with the flow of critical goods from China. This raises the stakes, bringing China more directly into the conflict. By hitting these choke points, Ukraine slows Russian troop and supply movements, forcing longer, less efficient routes. Every disrupted line adds to Russia's strain. It's a strategy of 1,000 cuts, bleeding the Russian army far from the front. China's support is now a riskier proposition. Ukraine's bold moves force Beijing to reconsider its no-limits partnership. The logistics war is global, and Ukraine is winning key battles. China is playing a dangerous double game. Publicly, it poses as a peacemaker. Privately, it's Putin's most important enabler. Without Chinese components and trade, Russia's war effort would collapse. China sees Ukraine as a test case, a live fire rehearsal for its own ambitions, especially over Taiwan. Beijing gives just enough support to keep Russia fighting, but not enough to trigger Western sanctions. Ukraine's deep strikes complicate this strategy, putting Chinese-linked assets at risk. Now, she must weigh the benefits of supporting Russia against the costs of being drawn in. Ukraine has driven a wedge between the two partners, exposing the limits of their no-limits friendship. China wants a weakened, dependent Russia, not a destabilized neighbor or a global conflict. Ukraine's success is upsetting Beijing's careful balance. By hitting Russia so hard, Ukraine is forcing China to make choices it would rather avoid. The double game is getting riskier for everyone. The economic war is fueling real gains on the ground. The refinery strikes are part of a coordinated strategy yielding results at the front. Ukrainian forces, empowered by new weapons and momentum, are pushing Russian troops back. Towns and villages are being liberated after months of occupation. The images of retreating Russian soldiers and abandoned equipment are everywhere. Putin's strongman image is crumbling. Internal dissent is growing. Military defeat and economic hardship are a toxic mix for the Kremlin. As Russian units face fuel shortages, their ability to fight collapses, morale plummets, and Ukrainian breakthroughs multiply. The economic and military fronts are working in perfect synergy. Each success amplifies the other, driving Ukraine's momentum. Putin faces his most precarious moment since the invasion began. Amid the chaos, talk of a high-stakes summit emerges. Trump, Putin, Zelensky. On the surface, peace sounds good. But is it real, or a trap? Putin has a history of using negotiations to stall, rearm, and deceive. Why talk peace now? Because he's losing. Refineries burning, economy in crisis, army retreating. A ceasefire now would freeze the conflict, lock in Russian gains, and let Putin rebuild. It's a pause, not a peace. Trump's deal-making could risk Ukrainian sovereignty for a quick headline. Zelensky faces impossible pressure, peace versus justice for his people's sacrifices. Any peace that rewards aggression invites more aggression. Ukraine finally has the upper hand, able to shut down Russia's war machine. Giving away that leverage for a false peace would be a historic mistake. The next moves are more dangerous and uncertain than ever. Ukraine holds a powerful new card. How it's played will shape global security. The stakes could not be higher.